Claire marketing, huh, cute. The words, dripping with condescension from my sister Megan, still echoed 17 years later. My stomach dropped as I pulled into the driveway, the scent of Oregon pine thick in the air. This quaint, dilapidated house was the stage for countless dismissals. Inside, I was screaming. Outside, I remained composed. Each crack in the sidewalk, each faded paint chip on the porch screamed of years of neglect. 17 years building sterling ventures, 17 years of proving them wrong. I gripped the steering wheel, the smooth leather a stark contrast to the rough memories resurfacing. The news that the Henderson account finalized today helped. A quiet smile played on my lips. Ever been overlooked, underestimated? Then you need to hear this. Like and follow for the full story of how sweet revenge unfolds. And trust me, the ending flips everything on its head. 2006. Megan's acceptance to the prestigious Rhode Island School of Design marked a turning point. It wasn't just the celebration, but the implicit message that artistic pursuits were somehow superior to my corporate ambitions. I remember the cloying sweetness of the congratulatory cake, a stark contrast to the bitter taste of resentment rising in my throat. That same year, I'd poured my heart into a scholarship application for a summer marketing program at Stanford. My meticulously crafted essays and glowing recommendations felt worthless when my parents casually dismissed it. "Claire, darling, it's just summer," Mom had cooed, her attention already drifting back to Megan's portfolio. The crumpled rejection letter still felt like a brand on my soul. The final straw was the diversion of my college fund. Dad, usually so stoic, stammered about Megan's unique talent needing nurturing. He said, "Claire, you're resourceful, you'll figure it out." Megan, typically effusive, remained silent, her eyes averted. The betrayal, the blatant favoritism, shattered any remaining illusion of equality. I packed my bags that night, the Oregon rain mirroring the storm inside me. I was done. I landed in Albuquerque with $800 to my name, a suitcase overflowing with ambition, and a burning need to succeed. No cozy apartment, no safety net, no family to fall back on. Just me. The first few months were a blur of ramen noodles, flea-bitten couches, and relentless networking. My days were spent cold calling businesses from a shared workspace, the air thick with desperation and cheap coffee. Nights were spent hunched over my laptop in a dingy studio apartment, the neon sign of a nearby motel casting an eerie glow on my face. The silence was only broken by the rumble of passing trucks and the gnawing fear that I would fail. The persistent ache of loneliness was a constant companion, a reminder of the family I had left behind and the price of my independence. My first big break came unexpectedly. A local bakery owner, impressed by my tenacity, gave me a chance to revamp their marketing strategy. Sales increased by 40% within 3 months. That success was the seed, the first tangible proof that I could indeed figure it out. Then, Sterling Ventures was born. 2010, securing the Henderson account. The words meant nothing to my family, they didn't know what it represented. The moment I signed the contract, I felt the weight of years of doubt lifting from my shoulders. This contract signaled my arrival. 2012, buying my first commercial property. No fanfare, no celebratory dinner, just the quiet satisfaction of knowing that I controlled my own destiny. It was more than just bricks and mortar, it was a monument to my resilience. The silence surrounding my success was intentional, strategic. It was my shield, my weapon. Let them continue to underestimate me. Let them believe I was merely getting by. Their ignorance fueled my drive, sharpened my focus. The contrast between their perceived reality and my actual accomplishments became a perverse source of satisfaction. Imagine my amusement then, when I discovered that the restaurant showcasing Megan's art was owned by one of my holding companies. The knowledge that her unique talent was indirectly supported by my hard work was an exquisite, almost cruel irony. No gloating, no public pronouncements, no dramatic confrontation, just a quiet smile and the silent promise of more to come. Then the call, Mom's voice trembling, "Your father collapsed." I felt a pang of guilt, quickly suppressed. Years of this, play it cool. My carefully curated life in Albuquerque threatened to unravel with a single phone call. I booked the first flight out. The hospital waiting room, a sterile purgatory of hushed anxieties and beeping machines. The air hung heavy with the scent of antiseptic and fear. Mom's face, etched with worry, barely registered my arrival. Dad, pale and weak, lay unconscious behind a curtain. I prepared to play the concerned daughter, the role I had abandoned years ago. "Claire, thank God you're here," Mom whispered, her voice cracking. We don't know what we'll do." Her eyes, usually sharp, held a desperate plea. The unspoken truth hung in the air, thicker than the hospital's smog. Their financial house of cards was about to collapse. 3 weeks later, a family dinner at Mom and Dad's. It wasn't a celebration, but a carefully orchestrated event. I had chartered a private jet to Oregon, and Lucas, my son, was in tow, an unwitting pawn in my game. The contrast was impossible to ignore. My arrival in a sleek black car versus Megan's beat-up Prius said it all. The air crackled with barely concealed tension as we gathered around the worn dining table. The aroma of Mom's pot roast filled the room, a nostalgic comfort, a stark contrast to the modern cuisine I preferred. Megan, ever the drama queen, arrived fashionably late, her eyes darting around the room, assessing the situation. "So, Claire," she drawled, "still playing corporate ladder." Her words were meant to sting, but they bounced off my well-rehearsed indifference. I merely smiled, a silent acknowledgement of her continued obliviousness. The game was about to begin. "Playing," I said, my voice a low hum of controlled power. "No, Megan, I own the ladder." I paused for effect, letting the words hang in the air. "And several buildings it might be leaning against." The silence was broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. Mom's face, already pale, drained of all color. Dad, still weak from his recent collapse, stared at me with a mixture of confusion and dawning comprehension. Megan's perfectly sculpted eyebrows furrowed in annoyance, then shot up in confusion. "What is that supposed to mean?" Megan scoffed. I reached into my Hermes bag, withdrawing a slim, professionally bound document. "It means," I said, placing the agreement on the table, "that I'm prepared to purchase this house outright. Today." The air was still thick with unspoken questions and rising tension. Mom gasped, clutching her chest. "Claire, you can't be serious, buying the house, what are you talking about?" "I own Sterling Ventures," I stated, my gaze unwavering. "It's a rather successful consultancy. We manage assets, we acquire property." I paused, letting the implications sink in. "We solve problems, like, say, impending foreclosure." My father blinked rapidly, his lips moving silently as he tried to reconcile the image of his struggling daughter with the reality unfolding before him. Megan's eyes narrowed, suspicion warring with a hint of something akin to fear. Lucas, oblivious to the undercurrents, continued to play with his toy car on the floor. "The terms are simple," I continued, ignoring their stunned silence. "I purchase the house at market value. You retain the right to live here, rent-free, for the remainder of your lives. The agreement outlines all the details." I met Mom's gaze, her eyes wide with disbelief. "It's all spelled out, in black and white." "Rent-free," Dad croaked, his voice barely a whisper. "But how? Sterling Ventures has a net worth of over $36 million. The Henderson account alone is worth millions annually," I said, emphasizing each word with clarity and precision. "I own controlling shares in several tech startups and a rather extensive real estate portfolio. This house, it's a drop in the bucket." Megan's face contorted in disbelief, her carefully crafted facade crumbling before my eyes. "That's impossible, you're lying." "Am I?" I challenged, raising an eyebrow. "Check the property records. Review the SEC filings. Or perhaps you'd prefer to examine the quarterly reports for Sterling Ventures." Megan's breath hitched, her eyes darting from me to my parents, desperately seeking an explanation. My mother's hands trembled as she reached for the agreement, her fingers tracing the elegant script. My father simply stared, his expression a mixture of shock and dawning understanding. The years of dismissal, of overlooking, hung heavy in the air. "So you're going to be our landlord now?" Mom's voice dripped with resentment. A beat of silence stretched, amplifying the sting of her words. "Think of it as security," I said evenly. "Consider it protection from, say, Megan's unique financial strategies." Megan sputtered. "I was going to help them. I was going to mortgage the house again." I finished for her, a hint of amusement lacing my tone. "Leverage their equity for your next artistic endeavor." The room became a pressure cooker of unspoken accusations. "I need to step outside," Dad stated, rising unsteadily. Mom reached for his hand. "Harold, please," he waved her off, shuffling towards the patio. His shoulders slumped. I watched him, a flicker of something almost like pity in my chest. Almost. This was his doing. He and Mom created this chasm between us. I had plans for that equity, Megan hissed, her voice low and venomous. You laughed then, I stated, locking eyes with her. You're not laughing now. Funny, isn't it, how the tables turn? The house itself was a major win, but it was a local win, a neighborhood-level flex. Small potatoes. Megan, desperate and predictably irrational, stormed out, vowing revenge. Let her try, I thought. That's when I dropped the real bomb. There's one more thing, I announced, my voice calm against the backdrop of their shock. I pointed to a clause buried deep within the agreement, Section 4, Paragraph B, right of first refusal. My parents stared blankly. What does that mean? Mom asked, her voice trembling slightly. It means, I explained, that if you ever decide to sell this house or any portion of it, I have the first right to buy it, at any price offered by a third party. The color drained completely from Megan's face, even though she had stormed out. I knew she was listening at the door. The silence was deafening. The blood drained from my mother's face. Dad visibly paled. That was the game changer. The house wasn't just a place to live. It was their legacy, their nest egg, their only tangible asset. Now its fate rested solely in my hands. They thought I was rescuing them, but I'd quietly bought all of their future financial decisions. And, I continued, enjoying the look of horror spreading across their faces, it also applies to any artwork created by Megan and sold in Oregon. Any gallery, any private sale, I get first refusal. And I have the option to assign that refusal to Sterling Ventures or any subsidiary. That's control, Dad stammered. Precisely, I replied, my voice deceptively soft. Complete control. Consider it a safeguard. After all, who knows what unique financial opportunities might arise in the future? The Henderson account hadn't been the only thing that finalized today. The legal team had completed all the paperwork only this morning. I watched, impassive, as the full weight of my carefully orchestrated plan crashed down upon them. The house was just the beginning. Their future, their financial freedom, their artistic endeavors all subject to my approval. The sweetness of victory had never tasted so good. Time drifted. The lawsuit from Megan was frivolous but annoying. They thought I'd broken some family trust, but there wasn't any family trust left to break. Years passed. My parents attempted to reconnect, invitations to holidays and tentative phone calls marking their efforts. I responded selectively, attending some events, declining others, maintaining a carefully curated distance. I also bought the house, which was cathartic. My life in Albuquerque flourished. The weight of resentment lessened. My business expanded, my home became a sanctuary, and my relationship with Lucas deepened. I found contentment, a sense of peace that had eluded me for so long. There was no going back, but there was healing. Looking back, I realized that true power wasn't about controlling others, but about controlling my own narrative. It was about defining my worth, not seeking validation from those who had once dismissed me. I had built an empire, not for revenge, but for myself. So you feeling that satisfaction too? Share your underdog story. What's your Henderson account, your legacy? Rise above. Let your success be the sweetest revenge.